This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with my earliest interview in the history of The Hannibal TV with none other than former AWA wrestler, former world-class championship wrestling wrestler, and WCW wrestler, member of the fabulous Freebirds, among other factions, true legend in this business, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure, and I understand this is kind of your retirement weekend from wrestling. What brought you to this point?
As far as the weekend event that's going on now, you mean?
Yeah, and deciding to be done with the wrestling business after this weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that goes back quite a ways to when I was in my mid-20s. I said I was going to retire when I turned 40. That was in 1992. I turned 40 on my birthday and retired. It was a long-range plan, and then I flew for over a quarter of a century for U.S. Air and Midway and NetJets Aviation. I retired about 5 years ago. So my departure from the business was a long-range plan, when I was a young man.
Well, it's nice to see a wrestler that's been able to move past wrestling and have success. How did you get involved in the business to begin with?
Well, in Tampa, Florida, West Tampa, where I'm originally from, my dad had a small apartment complex he built. He had the main house, which we lived in, and then there was like 3 little apartments connected to it, and there was a field next door. When I was 9 years old, I met Joe Scarpa and his wife because they rented an apartment from my dad. And then Joe Scarpa took me down to 106 North Albany as a 9-year-old to watch the tapes being made at the time. And also Eddie Graham had a youth division or youth club where the young guys could be trained by Coach John Heath, and also had Hiro Matsuda was there to kind of help out. So yeah, I started as an amateur at 9 for Eddie Graham at 106 North Albany, and then just to transition to pro when I was 17, because I was the oldest of 4 kids, and my dad passed when I was 12, so I had to go to work. So I turned pro November 1st, 1969 for Ernie Muhammad in Phoenix, Arizona, and then the rest is just history more or less. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
How was your actually pro wrestling training? Because back in those days, they were known for stretching wrestlers and really making you pay your dues, but you were fairly young getting into the business.
Yeah, 17 years old, and I need to back up too, just to cover it, just so people know that I'm trying to cover most of the important things. And that was that after my dad passed, and several years later, my mom ended up marrying Ronnie Garvin. So he was like my stepfather for a while, but then I left home early and went on the road. But he really didn't have nothing to do with me breaking in. Actually, I guess is my point. I just I knew I could go there for Ernie Muhammad in Phoenix, and make no money, but at least get some experience. And like you say, back in those days, you'd probably get stretched for a couple of years, or it wouldn't be easy anyway. They wouldn't make it easy on you.
Now, I'm from the Ottawa area, but my company, Great North Wrestling, promotes the Ottawa Valley, where I believe you met Precious in the Northlands territory in Ontario. Do you have any memories of working that territory with your brother, or with your kayfabe brother anyways?
The North Bay territory, when we with Larry Kasaboski, when Ronnie and Terry and Frankie Kane and Crux, all those guys that were up there at the time. Funk was even up there, like in the summers in the 60s, 67, 68. When the only time I wrestled with Ronnie was in Montreal in 1985, the summer of 84, maybe it was. We went to Montreal. I came out of Minnesota, and we just hooked up for the summertime with the Rougeaus and did real good business, and camped out, fished, and basically it was just like a vacation. But,
You had a couple of legendary angles with the Rougeos too. I believe one was the spraying of the precious spray in one of their eyes, which nearly caused a riot. Any memories of that?
Yeah, there was. I tell you, with the Rougeos and Ronnie and I and Precious up there, she may have sprayed the dad or something. I can't remember, but the Montreal Forum we got a couple of riots in there. We had some really tough matches and some real riot type stuff with those guys all over Quebec, because we went all over Quebec with that angle. And holy crap, yeah, we fought for our life many nights.
And I actually remember in the early 2000s, I went to one of your like 20-year later matches against the Rougeos, and you still had about 3,000 fans in attendance. Any memories of those matches?
No, I don't.
How
They
are
were great. They were great guys to work with, though. And Montreal, my goodness, they were like, Quebec's sons type of thing. Them and the Quebec City guy. What's his name? AWA champion. Rick Martel. Rick Martel, yeah.
as far as working with Rick Martel, any memories of that?
Oh yeah, I had great matches with him in AWA for Vern. All with Vern's different cities that we all went to. Martel and I had really working with him was just like a perfectly fit glove. It was just one of those guys you run into every once in a while, maybe a handful of them in my whole career, that you just cannot have hardly a bad match with them. You'd really just have to lose your mind to have a bad match with them.
Early in your career, you had some matches with Dusty Rhodes. Any memories of working with him?
No, I try to forget most of the things that had to do with Dusty Rhodes, the booker. No, I don't. Dusty just seemed to turn up whenever I was selling out places.
Yeah, actually, Ronnie said something similar, that he would attach on to wrestlers that were doing successful to kind of like scoop the heat, I guess.
Yeah. He rode the coattails of everybody. And whatever. I don't want to sound. I don't by no means want to sound sour or whatever. Whatever he did, what he did, that's him. Good for him, but not my style.
We have some fan questions on here, and Jeff Gills wants to know whatever happened to your valet Sunshine.
Sunshine was doing really good in Texas. We came out of Florida, went to Texas in '83 or '84, right around in there, '84 probably. And she was really young when she came on board with me in Florida. She was just a young innocent girl kind of. And then she went to Texas with me, and then with the Freebirds and myself, and we ran pretty hard, 24 hours a day almost sometimes. And she wasn't used to that, but she got kind of wrapped up in it a little bit. And her and Buddy was drinking more Jack Daniels than Michael and I, so that was the first sign. And then it was just she was going to end up getting in trouble, so I had to cut her loose and more or less try to send her home, so she wouldn't hurt herself or get do something bad happen with drinking and on the stuff that involved with on the road. So I had to break up with her and try to get her home. She didn't really go right away too. If you remember, she ended up managing a whole bunch of guys after we split up, and I went to Minnesota. She stayed around Texas and managed Hercules Hernandez and a whole bunch of other people, but never really did anything. And then she finally went home, thank goodness. And then, of course, Patty stepped in and took her place. And Patty wasn't really happy about that either. She didn't really want anything to do with taking, Valerie's place, but, she kind of had to because it was a hot gimmick at the time all over.
Speaking of Michael Hayes, do you remember your first meeting with him?
Yeah, it seems like the first memory I have of him would be at Tommy Rich's birthday party in Atlanta, and crap, so maybe 70, I don't even know, 74. He has a better memory than me, But yeah, it would be at Tommy Rich's birthday party. We were drinking moonshine, and I got pretty well tore up from the floor up. And I remember Patty was driving us home, and I think taking a corner in the neighborhood, and the door of the pickup truck came open, and I fell out into the street or something. Then she picked me up, took me home. But yeah, it was one of those kind of wild time, you know.
How was the atmosphere back then as far as the backstage and the outside of the ring stuff?
Man, it was everybody could make their own plan. And you know, back in the day, Krebs, it was, at least with Michael and I, if we're referring to the time that we spent together on the road, I'm just really glad I'm still alive, and I'm glad he is too, because probably shouldn't be.
Are you surprised Michael has stayed relevant in the wrestling industry for so long?
No, you know, he's one of those guys that just, I tell you, I talked about this with my wife sometimes. He's Pat Patterson reincarnated. You know, I mean, that's his life. You know, that was Pat's life. I knew Pat very well, and that was Pat's life, Pat Patterson, and that's Michael's life. That's what he does, and he does well. You know, obviously, or he wouldn't be where he's at. He's got a good head, and he's done well, considering, you know, we were a little bit on the wild side. So he did better than I did for Vince. I only lasted a week.
Yeah, well, yeah, the first incarnation of the Freebirds there didn't last very long. Did it really have to do with Andre the Giant getting upset?
Yeah, I think so. I think there may have been a little bit of a scuffle, maybe I don't know if there was a scuffle, because we'd have heard more about it, when somebody would have definitely got hurt, and it wouldn't have been Andre. But yeah, they didn't do too well that first meeting with Vince. I think they fall asleep in it or something, and Andre hated them, and they fell asleep talking to Vince, and it didn't work too good.
I heard they were going to give Michael a huge push too, and unfortunately, that whatever happened there kind of blew it for that point in time.
Yeah, it was they didn't they and you know, they just, you know, they were used to, and we all were, not just Michael and Terry and Buddy, but in the circles that we ran at the time, you know, just coming in from Texas and all that stuff. We weren't in our right mind anyway. So, you know, going up to Vince, you have to change your style a little bit accordingly. And Michael wasn't in the mood to change nothing, so he thought he'd stay the same, and that didn't work out too good. So he went away and came back a new man.
And they made him cut his hair, which who knows why.
Yeah, Doc Hendricks, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when I went up there to try out, supposedly the big tryout, after I'd been in the business for 20 some years, I was up there for a tryout, which was a joke. I lost my train of thought on it, but I just didn't fit in. It wasn't going to work for me. I was flying for NetJets too at the time, and you know, had a great job with Warren Buffett and NetJets, and so I just went up there just to mess around a little bit. But no, I couldn't stay up there. I couldn't do that kind of stuff. I can't.
Just too scripted for you?
Yeah. You know, and then what really got me is, you know, they wanted me to help with the writing and stuff on one of the shows. I forgot it. I don't know if it was Monday or Friday or what it was. But shoot, you know, I went up there a couple of days in Stanford, and those guys sitting up there at the computers, you know, just like a bunch of squirrels, you know, typing away. And that's just not how, you know, Michael and I used to be really creative and write a bunch of our own stuff that was used, but we didn't do it that way. And then at lunchtime, everybody get up like a bunch of minions and go to the cafeteria. Well, that's not how. I just couldn't stand that. The atmosphere was too regimental, and it was ridiculous. You know, writing guys promos, and you know what? That's crazy. That wasn't me. I was old. I'm definitely old school guy. You know.
The first time I remember seeing you was on those old AWA tapes when you were teaming with Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal, who I've interviewed and is a great guy. Any memories of that team? And of course, you had that memorable feud against the Road Warriors.
Yeah. Minneapolis, St. Paul. We took the titles from them. I think they did that to them just to I don't know. Like Hawk and Animal liked Steve and I a lot, so they wouldn't have any problem dropping the titles to us. And unlike if there was somebody else, if they had a problem or didn't feel like doing it, they wouldn't do it. But we had a good angle with them. They worked well with us. You know, they could have destroyed us at any time, kind of, but they worked well with us. We got along with them. Drew some good money with them around the territory. So yeah, it was a good experience. I enjoyed working with him. And Steve Regal was a great guy, like you said, great worker, great hand, old school guy.
And he also got out of the business and had success at a regular job as well.
Yeah, he's down in Florida, but what did he end up doing? Do you remember? I don't remember.
He did sales, but I believe he's retired now.
Yeah. Real
But
nice
he
guy.
this channel, so he might see you. He's a great guy. I talk to him every now and then.
Yeah, well, if he sees this, hey Steve, find me and get a hold of me. But no, and by the way, my wife and I watch your show too all the time. So,
Oh,
so you know,
that's great. I really appreciate that because I was a big fan of yours. So that's an honor.
Well, thank you.
As far as Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall, you also feuded with them.
Yeah, that was Scott Hall was kind of just starting out. If I believe he hadn't been around a long time. Kurt Hennig, of course, was seasoned well, but yeah, had some good matches with them. AWA was a great territory when I was there in 85. But then, of course, we all know what happened after that. It kind of went away. But yeah, it was great. It was great working with them. They had good talent. Vern had good talent in there all the time, it seemed like.
How did you find Vern Gagne to work with as a booker, I guess?
Kind of crazy. He's kind of crazy. I don't know. I would hear him coming down the hall in Winnipeg talking to himself when we'd do TV up there. And I don't know. He was his own. He was just in a world of his own kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't know how he did so well. I don't know. Greg was okay too. Then he had Bachwinkle and all the guys up there. Leo, who I don't even remember all the guys that was up there. But yeah, Vern did okay. I can't knock the guy. He had a AWA good territory. It was too bad he lost all his talent to Vince because that was the downfall, I think. I'm not a historian on it, but he was doing good until Vince took the talent from him, I guess.
And of course, you feuded with the Midnight Express in the NWA with Jim Cornette as the manager. Any memories of that feud?
Yeah, I do. At the time, I was on the gas pretty good, and I never did steroids that much. Really, I just didn't. Size wasn't my thing anyway. But at the time, I was on the sauce when we had that angle with them, and I probably wasn't that nice to work with. And not that I was a butthole, or somebody being really rude, because you'd get yourself hurt doing that in this business, as you know. But I mean, you know how it is when you're on the gas too. Not you're just jacked up and in high gear most of the time. So they didn't really like working with me too much. We had some pretty open arguments about my technique and style and stuff, and I apologize for being that way now. But yeah, it was rough on them a little bit. And then one time I remember Dr. Death was in their corner. And I got a little out of hand with him, because I didn't care for Cornette anyway too much. And Bobby, of course, I loved him, and Stan was okay.
I don't care for Cornette too much either, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah. No, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that, right? But I guess I got a little stiff with Stan, or maybe I think Cornette tried to hit me with a chair, and I didn't even sell it. I didn't even wink or nothing. I think I turned around and went after him or something. But anyway, Dr. Death stepped in and decided to straighten me out. And after the match was over, from what I can recollect, I think we were in Boston, maybe. I can't remember now. But he hit me with a chair pretty hard to smarten me up, like get me back in line. And the boys talked about that for a while, because I think he hit me a couple of good times with that freaking chair, and I got the message that I needed to calm down a little bit. You don't want to piss off Dr. Death at the time, you know?
Yeah.
He could make your life a little miserable.
And for fans that don't know, often there's like a policeman in the territory that will do stuff like that. But may I ask why you decided to take stuff at that time when you were known more as a wrestler anyways than a body guy?
Yeah, I think it might have been just the period of time where, you know, it seemed like it was around everywhere. And I don't know if that's a very accurate answer, but it just because I didn't really get into. I mean, maybe I used the steroids in my whole 23-year career, probably 2 times or 3 times. So it might have, and it might have been because I'm trying to think if the Steiners, if we were having matches with the Steiners, would be one reason I'd go on the gas, because that used to be brutal, as you could imagine. I mean, with Rick and Scott and me and Michael and I, Lord have mercy. You know, that was, I remember one time, that's probably one good reason I went on the sauce, so I could hang with those guys half-ass. And you don't hang with them either, by the way. But yeah, holy crap.
Somebody made me a tape from around that time that's just Steiner Brothers squash matches, and it was more shoot than work with some of those enhancement talents.
They had no regard for the human body on those guys, man. No regard. You agree?
Yeah, there's one in particular I remember where the guy's wrestling Rick, I believe, just in a pair of Zubaz pants, and Rick just demolishes him, and it's pretty much a shoot.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, in working with them, it was man, that those suplexes off the top rope and belly to back stuff, and oh my gosh, and clotheslines, and talk about stiff. Lord have mercy. But you know, we handed it right back to them. I mean, we didn't complain too much, but holy crap, that was tough work there.
World of Crazy Dan says, would you do the strut for us, Jimmy?
No.
Well,
It's not dark enough, and I haven't been drinking. I don't drink anymore anyway.
Oh, what made you stop? Just bad for your health, or?
You know, the fact that, you know, miraculously next month I'll be 70 years old, and I've had a wonderful, blessed career, 2 careers, the wrestling and the aviation, incredible careers. And I've just been so lucky that years ago, I just said, you know, when I was young, I did everything, and I did it a lot. And I just thought, you know, it's time to kind of calm down. And I made that decision 20 years ago. But yeah.
Well,
Nothing.
70 is like 120 in wrestler years.
Huh?
70 is like 120 years old in wrestler years.
Oh, I know. I mean, I was talking to Stan Hansen this morning, and I said, you know, really, Stan, I'm not even supposed to be alive, right now, because I wasn't supposed to make it this far. You know, if they would have been doing bets back in the day, I was supposed to be gone a long time ago. So I'm really, really excited every time I get up in the morning. I'm happy, and I live a really nice life too.
Well, that's good to hear. Is there any wrestler in particular whose death hit you the hardest of all the fallen brothers that have passed away?
Well, you know, I think David would have been maybe the first one that really kind of hit home to me. David would have been David Von Erich, because he was so young, early 20s or something, mid 20s when he passed. There's been so many. But yeah, I guess David, right, that's really the only one I can think of. I mean, you know, Chris Adams, gone. There's so many that are gone. Sometimes Patty and I sit around and we think, gosh, look at all the people. Sometimes I'll go on the internet too. That's crazy. But I'll look at the wrestlers that's passed like since, you know, the 90s or something, 92. And it's amazing. I look at all the names of guys that I knew and was on the road with and drank and ate and worked, and they're freaking gone. You know, it's amazing.
Well, it's nice that both you and Ron have done well. Tim gave me a tip and said, what was your favorite sportatorium or Dallas wrestling?
The sportatorium in Dallas they're referencing?
Yeah, the famous sportatorium.
Sportatorium. Yeah. Well, you know, Chris Adams and I had some great matches in the sportatorium. That would be the one that had the most matches of high quality with Chris Adams. I had some with David, but I didn't really have a chance because he passed so soon. But Chris and I, you know, with Dallas and the girls, that whole angle was really, really enormous angle. You know, because we took it up to Kansas City and St. Louis. You know, at the time when Chris and I was working that angle for World Class, and then Patty and I went to Japan too once with the angle, but with the gimmick. But yeah, I guess it'd be Chris in the sportatorium.
Now, what did you think of Chris outside the ring? Because I've heard a lot of stories from him, and he was a very interesting fellow.
Yeah, and you know, I think and this is my throw on it, and I get a pretty good handle is when I first met Chris in Texas. You know, he came in, I think, somewhere from the northwest, Oregon or whatever, and he was basically, you know, never really did anything, kind of getting started. He had the judo and stuff he did, but wrestling wise, he never really, you know, made a lot of noise. So. I lost my train of thought. Hannibal, ask me again. I was looking at something else.
Chris Adams outside the ring. He was.
Oh yeah.
Well,
He was really good at first, and then after I left in 84 or 85, right in there, he just changed. He didn't drink a lot when I was working with him. He didn't have a drinking issue. He didn't have a drug issue when I was working with him. He was just a young kid that was just getting his first break, and he was drawing enormous money for WCW, and him and I had a great angle, and he was level-headed, good to do business with. And then after I left and went to Minnesota, it seemed like he went downhill after that. And I don't know if it was because, you know, he wasn't involved in the business to such a degree and drawing such money like he was when we worked together, and Texas was kind of, you know, melting on its own at the time, so it was going downhill. So he changed after I left. He did get, unfortunately, he had some demons that really knocked the crap out of him, and it ended up killing him.
Yeah, and a death where unfortunately one of his friends ended up killing him.
Yeah. I mean, and how bizarre, because when I think back, like not to repeat myself, but man, when he first came in and we started working together, he was clean as a whistle, just good, just straight level. His head was on right, and it just after the Texas started sliding down, it was like he slid down personally as well, for whatever reason.
Any memories of the Von Erichs themselves, who also had a bit of a tragic end?
Yeah. David and I ran together in Florida before I came to Texas. When I was in Florida with him, he said, "Listen, when you finish here, you know, come to Texas and we'll do something." You know, but that's kind of how it worked back then. You know, you'd finish up in a territory and move to another one every year or two or something. But had great times with David in Texas. Or in Florida, and then in Texas, it was, you know, kayfabe was big. So, you know, we didn't socialize or we didn't hang around with them because of the kayfabe thing and everything. But you know, and the Birds worked mostly with Kerry and Kevin. Dave did his Japan thing. So yeah, I didn't have much. I didn't work with Kerry and Kev. I worked with Chris most of the time.
Did you notice if there was issues ever, or was that a surprise to you to hear about all that?
With Kevin and with Kevin?
Kevin and
with all of them, kind of.
Yeah, I heard that David was the most straight one, actually.
Yeah, David he had his head on Exactly right. I think he would have been a great world champion. I think maybe you hear that too, or have heard it, that he maybe was in line for the title. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, I heard that, and they kind of gave it to Kerry as kind of a consolation thing.
Yeah.
Sadly, yeah,
Yeah.
terrible story.
Oh yeah, the David story is terrible. Terrible.
Did you have
Terrible.
much contact with Bruiser Brody? I won't put you down that road because I know you're friends with him.
Uh, as far as he used to live at the apartment complex that my dad had built. Uh, Brody lived there for a while, and so did John Studd, and so did Angelo Mosca. It was kind of and I don't. We're getting off the subject. You'll have to remind me what you asked me. But those guys lived there. Everybody liked to live at that house because it was private. It had a swimming pool, jacuzzi. It was very private, and the guys loved living there. And I have fond memories of all them guys enjoying themselves. But what was your question? I digressed.
Bruiser Brody is a big popular subject on this channel, so I was wondering if you had any stories you could share with us about him.
He used to stay at the house, and then he would walk. He was just he was a great guy. There was only one of him too. I mean, obviously there was only one Bruiser Brody, but I always got along with him. Never was really close to him. We went to Japan. I was in Japan one time, and he was there. Of course, he was always there. But no, I don't have any real stories about him other than Brody was Brody, and you just stayed out of the way. That's probably the best thing to do, is just stay out of the way.
How did you like wrestling in Japan overall?
It was okay. It was okay. I wasn't in the right frame of mind at the time to. I still kick myself when I think about the angles in Japan, especially when Patty and I went over there. I didn't have my head on right business wise. I was just making money and messing around, and we stayed a month in Hawaii on the way over to Japan, and then on the way back we stayed another month. I was just in basically La La Land. I guess where I'm going with that is I missed the boat on having a really good angle over there using Precious because the valet in Japan had never been utilized at all, and it would have been huge money, but I just didn't do it. So I kind of regret that part.
Tom wants to know, how did you and Patty meet?
As I said earlier, my mom married Ronnie like in 66 or something like that. I was only 13 or something maybe when that happened, or 14. And give me the question again. I forgot it.
How you and Patty met the
Oh,
first.
Patty. So we would go to Ronnie would go to Northland Wrestling up for Larry Kazaboski, and in '67 we went to Montreal to the Expo. So we were going up there in the summertime for Ronnie to wrestle. Ronnie and Terry were wrestling for Kazaboski. So, and we'd go up there and fish. Fishing was really great in Lake Nipissing at the time. So in 1969, we go the summer of '69, July 6th, 1969. I met Patty at Tim Hortons. Tim Horton had a little hot dog stand there. He had the first one he had. He was the hockey player too. And I met her. She was just turned 14 and I was 16. And then I stayed up there because I didn't care to go back home with Ronnie and them. So I stayed up there in Canada and went to school and stayed at an old flop house hotel downtown. And then I turned 17 in September when I was going to school up there, and I couldn't stay up there because I couldn't survive. So then I went down, and then of course in November 1st of that year, '69, I turned pro. So I started dating Patty in '69, and then we married in '72, and we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. So that's how that happened.
And 50 years in wrestling is also very impressive.
Yeah, honest to goodness. I mean, some people, some people have said to me that, you could probably tell a pretty good book, but nah, can't do it, But I can say that I really had, it's been an unbelievable career, the wrestling career, and then to drop into the flying, flying for Warren Buffett and that for 20 years. Holy crap, that's pretty good. I can't complain. I'm blessed. I say that often.
Blessed and a good head on your shoulders. Hurricane Maverick wants to know memories of your matches with Ric Flair.
Yeah, had some decent matches with Ric Flair, kinda. Yeah, his style, and at the time, it was okay. That was a good angle between Flair and Patty, and with Ronnie when he did Miss Atlanta Lively and all that. That was a good angle. I don't know if you remember seeing any of that stuff, but
With Ronnie and Drag.
yeah, knocking JJ in the pool. That was the interesting time. That was just a good angle. That was a good angle. Just a good time.
How did you find your time in WCW overall?
Having the politics that was involved there in my frame of mind at the time, uh, which I never played the politics, and I never was an office or a company guy. I was more of I think it's well known that I was a tad bit on the outlaw side. So I did whatever I wanted to do, and that was that. So it was, watching Dusty and Arn and Ole Anderson. I just that it. I don't know.
Did
I
it
don't know. I don't want to sound sour, but wow, it ain't that important. You don't really have to be that big of a dink for the, to get something. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
were the
I hated working. I didn't like working for Dusty anyway. Every time I turn around, if I was in an angle like it with Magnum TA, remember that angle with him and Patty, which, by the way, I had Magnum TA's last match in Greenville, South Carolina, the night he had the accident, and we were getting ready to step into a huge angle with Patty and Magnum and myself. But when we started it in Turner, you remember, I don't know, the time that Dusty came out, and Dusty put himself in every program he could put himself in, because that's the way he worked, and I thought that was cheeky, to say the least. But whatever, he was the boss. You can't beat City Hall, so I don't know. It wasn't that much fun. WC with Ole Anderson, my gosh, there's another character, and Dusty and all that. I just don't. That's not how I think.
Ole is another popular subject on this channel. Do you care to elaborate at all on him?
On who? Ole?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I tell you, what a piece of work he was. He was. I can't say anything nice about him, so I'm not going to say anything.
Was your pay good, at least in WCW, for all that crap you had to go through?
It was okay. It was okay. When I think about it, it was okay. I'm sure they hit me up because I didn't have any problem letting them know that I don't play their game, and I could care less about them or what they thought. I was an outlaw. I always was an outlaw. I didn't care for the office. Wasn't an office guy. Wasn't anything like that. Just leave me alone. Let me do my thing and pay me. And of course, I know that probably hurt me money wise a little bit, but it's not what you make, it's what you save. So.
Exactly. And as far as Magnum TA, you mentioned you had his last match before that unfortunate accident. How did that accident affect you?
Well, he was a good friend of mine. In fact, he used to, and when I worked for Bill Watts in Oklahoma, he was breaking in. He hadn't even really broke in yet. He kind of was trying to break in. And he used to drive me around in Oklahoma in an Olds 98, a gold Olds 98 that he had. And so him and I go back a ways. And then when we started the angle, it was great. I mean, it was going to be a huge angle for sure.
That's unfortunate. There's a fan on here that wants to know if you have any Terry Gordy stories to share.
Oh Lord, yes, my goodness. Well, it's the ones I can remember. I mean, Texas and Gordy and Hayes and the Birds and oh my gosh, that was crazy times. That was stuff. I mean, we came home one night. I've told this story before, but we came home one night from Friday night, in Dallas at the Sportatorium, and we just stopped by that. We already, liquored up, liquor store run was done. Got to the apartment, and I had an apartment across the street, but I didn't live there. I just had an apartment. I lived at the Birds house the whole time, and so we get to the house and we say, well, where's the key? Well, we didn't have the key, so Terry says, I got the key. So we said, okay, good. Well, little did we know, he backed up and he kicked the door right off the hinges and took the whole door down. And then we ended up propping the door up for days until the maintenance guys could come and fix it. Nobody would ever come near that apartment because they knew the Birds lived there, and it was like crazy. Everybody in the apartment complex knew that we were insane at the time. And we actually had the guy living upstairs had a family, and we always kept the air conditioning on about 65 anyway, because of the partying and stuff. And we were friends with the maintenance guys, so we had the maintenance guys switch the electrical lines. So we had the electrical lines to our house moved to the guy's meter upstairs, and we had his electrical moved to our meter. So his electric bill was probably $400 a month, and ours was probably $80 a month because he watched his power, and we just run it all the time. So, I mean, that's a Terry Gordy idea, it just crazy stuff. And leaving the airport, you have to leave the airport. We came back from San Antonio one night, and you got to pay your ticket, and then the wood comes up so you can drive underneath. Well, we didn't even do that. Gordy just stepped on the gas in that Lincoln, and we busted through the barricade, sent the piece of wood flying. I don't even know where that ended up. The guy in the booth to take the change, I don't even know what happened to him, but we kept on going. Never heard anything of it, but Lord have mercy. The other stories, there's just, and then I started Terry Gordy flying, because I was flying at the time, taking lessons and doing all that stuff and flying around. So I said, Terry, come on, take a lesson, and he took a lesson or two. Then he ended up taxiing into a fuel truck with his airplane. So his flying career was over. And that kind of goes on and on. I mean, my gosh, I don't know. Terry Gordy we had some good stories with him. Christ.
What about the dead fish on Buddy Roberts' face down at the beach? Remember that?
Oh, when he passed out?
Yeah.
Yeah, Buddy Roberts passed out on the beach in Corpus Christi, and we had found some dead fish. It was the nastiest, rottenest fish I had ever seen. Terry Gordy laid it on his face, and he was drunk, and it was about 95 degrees in Corpus Christi, and that fish was laying across Buddy Roberts' forehead. Lord have mercy. He was burnt up from the sun. There was fish stuff all over. It wasn't right. Buddy wasn't right either. We'd burn all the furniture in the house one night too. We'd sold out Reunion Arena 6 times in a row or something like that. Ridiculous. And we came home that night and from another shot or something, and found out that the Reunion Arena coming up was already sold out. So Buddy's decided to celebrate. So he did a backdrop on the coffee table and busted it. And then he decided he wanted to have a fire in the fireplace. So he burnt the coffee table, the 2 end tables, the bedside table, all the furniture that we had rented. He didn't burn the couch, but he burned everything else. We had no furniture. The next morning we came to, and there's like pieces of stick furniture legs hanging out the fireplace, smoldering. The carpet burnt and all kind of shit. We probably almost set ourselves on fire.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Miracle you weren't in jail, actually, with all the stuff you guys pulled.
Oh Lord, that's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, I don't know. We could sit down for a while over a couple of beers, maybe if I drank, and come up with more stories. I'd remember them, but there's so many of them that, gosh, dog, I just don't know. I just don't know. There's so many of them. Good times.
Now, I know the Freebirds were attacked a lot with all the heat you guys had. Could you share any of your fan attack stories?
With Michael and I didn't have too bad a time with the fans attacking. I had trouble in Texas, for instance. I remember Laredo, Texas. Chris Adams and I had a match. Patty was, of course, at ringside, and it was a sellout down there on the border. And I always had to keep a close eye outside the ring on Patty because people would come over the fence, come over the barricade and attack her. It's happened several times. Once in St. Louis, I heard a big like smack, and I looked around. I didn't see her. So I looked around all the corners, and I finally seen her, and she's on the floor with this big woman weighing about 230, and they're having a shoot down there in between the railing and the ring. Gosh, dog, it was in Laredo. They had, again, she got picked up by the people, and they were actually carrying her out back. It was at a fairgrounds, and they were carrying her out back over their head. And the guys had to empty the dressing room to come and get her, baby faces and heels, actually, at the time, because they were taking her away. And nobody, it was a big fight to get to her and get her, and then get her back in the dressing room. That was a major fight. And then, of course, I was stabbed one time in Australia in the back. I was food poisoned twice, too. Rat poisoned. Nearly killed me twice.
Or about the stab in the back? That seems pretty serious.
Yeah, Australia had a riot, and I got stabbed over my kidney back here, probably about 2 inches. Didn't puncture any organs, but yeah. And back in the day, it was not uncommon to have those kind of riots, as because the people, they got into it, and they would hit the ring. And I've had them hit the ring, and like I say, getting stabbed and getting my hair pulled out by the roots, and have to fight your way back, to the dressing room. Nassau Coliseum in the Bahamas. Sweet Brown Sugar and I was in a title match for the Bahamian title, which I didn't want nothing to do with, because I knew there was going to be a riot when they said that I was going to get the title in the Bahamas from Sweet Brown Sugar. And I was, in order to get it, I was going to have to screw him for it. So that was going to involve a massive heat. And boy, we did. I screwed him, and I took the title, but they closed the barricades in on the ring, and they hit the ring, and we had to fight with police dogs and the police, and we fought our way back to the dressing room. It was terrible. Then we had to sit around for a couple hours after it was over. And so we had to walk. It was a setup from the Nassau Stadium Coliseum. We could walk to the hotel. It was that close. Well, that was okay under normal circumstances, but this particular night when I'd screwed Sweet Brown Sugar for the title and waited 2 hours for the crowd to dissipate, the police and the dogs were walking me back to the hotel. It was about 2 blocks, and there were people hiding in the bushes with slingshots, and they would take the rocks from the road, and as we were walking, I'd get hit with these rocks from the slingshot, and it would just blister and bleed. And actually, by the time I got back to the hotel, I was sick to my stomach, and I was a mess because they just shot the shit out of me for 2 blocks.
What about Houma, Louisiana?
Houma, Louisiana was a death trap too. All that Louisiana stuff, Houma, La Ranger, back in the day. Holy crap, working for Watts and Grizzly Smith, the payoff sucked. The traveling was terrible,
And by the way, that's Bobby Fulton in the background for the fans that were asking who it was. Could you elaborate at all on Bill Watts?
Bill Watts? Yeah.
Bill
Watts, let's see, we're going to categorize him. He's not a good person. Nah, Bill Watts I don't have nothing nice to say about him too. So, you know, I don't want to talk too bad. You know, I don't want to be like old sourpuss, you know, and say, oh, he was a, excuse my language, a prick or whatever. But anybody that knew Bill Watts knew, shoot, not a good person.
Yeah, unless I guess you were a young person that wanted to learn and didn't really care about the payoffs or the travel. But
Right, because we used to have to drive stupid, you know, New Orleans to Tulsa, and it was horrible territory. I mean, are you driving 3,000 miles a week and wrestling every night? It's horrible, and you're making about $500 a week.
someone says they remember you from Shreveport. That was part of this territory as well.
Yeah, Shreveport, the auditorium. Yeah, had some good matches in Shreveport, the Ranger, all those places. Yeah.
Ivan wants to know if you have any memories of working for Carlos Colon in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, too. That's another piece of work. I actually had a match with the guy that killed Brody after he killed him too, which I wasn't real happy with. But no, he was a piece of work. He's another one. You know, we put him in that category with Watts and Ole. Watts, Ole, Dusty, Carlos Colon.
Carlos still owes me money, so I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think he owes me money too. I think he owes me money too, because we went over there. Me and Paul Orndorff went over there for him one time. Damn, we went over there. I don't even know. I don't remember the whole deal on it, but we went over there when Paul was just breaking in, kind of, and we wanted to go snorkeling. So we found this old wino down by the docks. He had a rowboat and a sail, and I had brought over some diving tanks, and I had the setup with me. I wasn't certified, but I had the equipment. Back in the day, you didn't have to be certified. You could get the equipment and use it, and you can get air and everything, and not worry about being certified. But Paul didn't have anything, so we got him a mask and a snorkel. We get in this boat with this wino that's already drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. He takes us out along this rocky freaking thing. We tell him we want lobsters, right? We're going for lobsters. Paul Orndorff and I don't even know nothing about what we're doing, but we got the idea that we're going for lobsters. So we get out there and we're in about 20 feet of water. Well, I can go down because I got tanks, belt, and all that stuff. I can go down the bottom and mess around. But Paul, he's having to take a deep breath and then try to swim down to the bottom. And then he gets down there and he can only last like 5 seconds because he's out of gas, out of air. So anyway, I give him my flippers, and, you know, that way he can get down faster and try to get a lobster or something like that. We weren't going to get nothing anyway, but he was doing that. Well, I had my tanks on. I didn't have any fins because I gave them to Paul so he could get down quicker. So I'm swimming around. Well, little do I know that I get myself in a current, and this current takes me in. I didn't really realize it, but when I came to the surface, the friggin' boat was a football field away, and I'm out in the middle of the ocean, and the guy on the boat is drunk, and Paul's going up and down trying to get lobster, and I'm heading to China. Well, now I'm thinking I'm going to run out of air. The current's got me. It's taking me to China. Paul's over there. I'm done. I'm dead. So I go to the bottom with my tanks, and I'm crawling on the bottom, grabbing on the rocks because the current's so strong. And I'm pulling myself, and I come up and look where the boat is. Well, the waves would come, the boat would disappear, then the waves would go down. I'd see the boat over there, still half a football field away. Holy crap! I almost drowned that day, and we didn't get no lobster. But finally, I'm yelling and I'm waving, hey, hey, hey. They finally came pick me up, but it was the shits.
I see you're wearing your WWE Hall of Fame ring. How did it feel for you to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
It was okay. I mean, Michael and I, if that's what they wanted to do, it was okay. I don't want to sound like unappreciative because it's a nice gesture, If it wouldn't have happened, that's okay too, It was good for the boys, though. I think for Terry and Buddy and their family, I guess, But yeah, it's Michael and I. We don't care, We're glad to just be alive.
Yeah, I can imagine. Jason wants to know any memories of working with Wahoo McDaniel.
Oh yeah, really enjoyed working with Wahoo. Sure did. In fact, him and I and Patty had a good little angle here with the Jim Crockett Promotions when we came here in '86. Wahoo and I got into an Indian strap match angle, and Patty got in his face a few times. We had good matches. Wahoo and I. He was a good guy, a tough guy, and I have a lot of respect for him.
There's been a few fans that have wanted to know, one, where you got your dance moves from, and also memories of being in the Bad Street video.
The Bad Street video just so happens I was hanging out drinking with Michael and he was shooting it. So he said, "You want to be, might as well be in it." So yeah, and I did that little cameo thing. But Michael always thought he was like a David Lee Roth of wrestling, and actually thought he could sing too. But that's another story. But the Bad Street video, yeah, that was just messing around. And what was the other question? What was you telling me?
As far as your dance moves on
Oh
the
shit!
ring.
Oh shit! I don't know, man. I have no. I don't even. Just for a quick story, the gorgeous Jimmy Garvin character. I was traveling with Ernie Ladd going down to Miami in the Florida territory in like '84, and he said, "Jim," he says, "you got a good background. You got an amateur background. You could wrestle." He says, "But you too plain Jane. You can't. You're not going to ever sell any tickets. You need a gimmick." So to make a long story short, Ernie Ladd talked to me for about 3 hours about having a gimmick, and then I went home and thought about it and thought, yeah, I'm pretty plain Jane, and yeah, I'm probably not going to sell any tickets with this gimmick. So I need a gimmick. And then I started thinking about Gorgeous George, and of course, the gorgeous Jimmy Garvin character came around, and I created that with an '80s version, more or less, of a Gorgeous George with the valet, and that kind of started. That just kind of started that. And then with the sharp dressed man, I mean, I don't know where the moves come from. That I don't. And to be honest with you, that character, I'm glad he's done too. I had
Bunch of people on here said you had the best perm in wrestling.
But you know what? That was my natural hair. It wasn't a perm. Wasn't.
Really? So you didn't have to work on that at all?
No, I woke up looking that way. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with a girl right now, and she said you looked sexy back in those days.
Yeah, I was.
She's mad that I pointed out. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I lived it. Yeah, I did it.
What did you get your pilot's license, by the way? Just to wrap this up here.
How did I get it? When?
Yes, because it's unusual for a wrestler to end up becoming a pilot.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's a great story too. I mean, Sam Maneker, who worked for Leroy McGurk in Oklahoma in 1972. After I broke in, I went to McGurk in '73, and I had to go to a town, and Sam Maneker had a Cherokee 140, and he flew me to the town in this little single-engine airplane. Make a long story short, if I can. So I fell in love with aviation. I started taking lessons. I just loved to fly. But I knew I could make some money in wrestling eventually, so I had to stay with that. But I knew I loved to fly. So every territory I went to after that, I always took lessons wherever I was at. If I was in a town for the weekend or for whatever length of time, I'd go out to the local airport and get a flight instructor, take me up, and I had a logbook, and I'd take lessons all over wherever I was wrestling at. So by the time I was, by the time I was like 27, because I started flying when I was like 19, pro 17, I turned pro. 19, I started flying. the time I was 27, I had my flight instructor's rating. I had every rating I could get. I had my commercial rating. I had every license you could have. So then in 88, Ronnie and I bought a Cessna 402, which was about a 7-passenger, had a bathroom, bar, great airplane. We flew it all over the country for the Great American Bashes. So I was building time like crazy as I was wrestling, because I already said I was going to retire when I turned 40 and play golf and fly airplanes. That was my plan at 27. And so at 40, when I retired, I got a flight instructing job in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I started flight instructing, and that was kind of boring for about a year. So then I got onto freight. I was flying freight for Southeast Aeromotive, and that was a dangerous, crappy job because it was single pilot. It was at night and all kind of difficult weather sometimes with unreliable machinery. So it wasn't very good, but it was great experience. I did that for about 3 years or so. And then I got on, then some guys I knew saw me fall out of a plane in Greenville, South Carolina, because I'd been flying all night. Falling out of the plane, meaning I'd just been up and, I looked a wreck and I was flying freight, and they were flying for US Air Express. So they said, send us your paperwork. We'll get you a job in flying, commercial for US Air. So I did that, got on with them, then went to Midway Airlines after that. Then 2001, Midway went bankrupt with an event that happened in Washington. And then I went, somebody told me, one of my buddies said, send me your paperwork. We'll send it into Buffett at NetJets. And I did that in September of 01, hired on with NetJets Aviation and flew jets for them for 20 years and had a great, fabulous aviation career.
Well, I'm very impressed with that. I plan to retire by the time I'm 42, is 40 as well. I only have one more match left, so I'll follow you on that, but I don't think I'm smart enough for aviation
Yeah, well,
interviews. But is there anything you'd like to say to the fans as we wrap this up? I don't think you have social media.
no, I don't. I don't. And I would just like to thank them for all the years of support and all the stuff that I did. I'm just glad that they found maybe a way to be entertained by it. It was a fun thing to do. I feel blessed, like I mentioned before, in so many ways. And the fans have just, if it wasn't for the fans, then I probably couldn't do what I did and have the life I had. And I'm very grateful, very appreciative for the opportunity. And I just I worked out good.
Well, I'm glad.
We didn't know if we was going to make it or not. But yeah.
Not only are you almost 70, but you've been married 50 years, which is amazing. So it's been an honor and a privilege, and I'll let you close this, but thank you very much, sir.
Same here. Same here. Take care. Okay. Good.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews,